Welcome to the Work-Life Balance Podcast. I am Kara.
And I am Maggie.
Together, we're a power real estate team with the Bajetti Partners in Nashville.
We believe that the hustle culture of today's driven entrepreneur who lives and works in Middle Tennessee requires balance.
Hi guys, welcome back to Work-Life Balance with Kara and Maggie.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We have a special guest today. This is Lauren Lowrey. She is pretty impressive with an Emmy-winning news anchor from Channel 4 here in Nashville.
Yes.
And so much more.
So much more, oh my gosh. But we'll let you tell us about all of that.
Say mom, public speaker, podcast, Ampistigator, which I'm so excited to delve into that one too because that's fun. So here we are.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
I know. So give us a brief on you. Who is Lauren Lowrey from the perspective of you? Because you are so many things, as we just found out and said. So
it's funny. I think, I'm getting closer and closer to 40 at this point, and I've spent almost 20 years in television. And so for a long time, I would introduce myself as a news anchor. Like, I am a news anchor. I am a mom. I am a podcast host. I am all these things. But in the last, probably in this last 6 months, I've started to say differently what I actually am. I am none of those things. Those are just the things that I do. I do the mom thing. I do the news anchor thing. I do the podcast thing. I do the wife thing. I do all those things. What I actually am is a passionate seeker of the truth. I am a sacred rebel. I am someone who loves to break rules. That is who I am. And it just happens that I do all those other things.
Oh my gosh. I love that
That
answer.
is so profound. So how did you, that is really hard, just one, having the self-awareness to even say that, but to be able to find that. So tell us a little bit about like your journey. I know when I met you, you did a seminar on like living as you. So go into that a little bit.
Yeah,
your journey.
so it's all of that was born out of pain. So just to give the listeners some background, in the last 2 or so years, I've started to get into public speaking in a way that I didn't expect. As a news anchor, I'm always on stages. I'm like literally stages and television. I'm on stages all the time for events, for emceeing, for hosting, for that sort of thing. But I was never asked to be on stage to tell my personal story or to speak from my heart. It was always to play a role, right? It's always a performance. And in the last couple of years, I hit something when I was 36, like something just happened. And it was like, bam, right? It's like, hit me in the face. Yeah. And I do believe, as an aside, that there's something that happens to you around 35, 36, like to hell with midlife crisis in your 40s. I think it starts earlier. Yeah. And something happened to me where it woke me up. And so I realized, there's a lot more that I can be doing. There's a lot more that I can be saying. And so it started just in the last year or two of me getting on stages specifically to talk through the thing that you watched me talk through back in November of 2023, where I shared basically the stages of consciousness, the stages of things where we have options. Can we live our lives as victims? Sure. I can believe that life happens to me. Sure. But I'm not going to get very far. And then I can also believe that I make life happen, that I take the bull by the horns and I do it. And that can also be great. I've done it. It didn't get me very far. It got me to a hospital. So then the next stage begins to be surrender. Like, how do I surrender into what I'm really called in to do? How do I do that? And so that's sort of what's happened to me in the last couple of years, because I do feel like I was completely called into television. I feel like I was called into starting the podcast I started because I needed to have the conversations I was having where I talked through purpose and meaning and fulfillment with people who were going against the grain in their own way. And so for me, the thing that gives me life, yes, being on TV is cool and fun, but it's very surface. The thing that gives me life is having deep, deep conversations about who you are, what you're like, truly who you are, not what you do, who you are, what you think you're meant for, what's calling to you, what inside you is hungry for something. That's the stuff I like to talk to people about. And so that's, everything that I've kind of built my life around in the last 2 years has been around that hunger, purpose, that sort of stuff.
Go ahead. Well, I just kind of want to go back to when you were 36 and that hit you. Was it that you were so tired of the superficial and you wanted to be more authentic and like actually speak your truth and give yourself your own platform?
Yeah. So what it really was it was the realization that I had allowed everyone else to determine my value. Yeah. I had allowed everyone else to determine my success. I mean, you got to remember in television, in broadcast, which is, I mean, I've been in it since I was 20. I started working at 21, you know, and so every consultant, every manager, every executive said, Lauren, do this, wear this, be this person, and you'll be successful. You'll get the next job, the next contract, you'll make more money, you'll get awards. And please believe I did, right? Like I won all the awards. I got the great big contracts. Like I did all those things. I followed the rules and I had great success. I continue to have great success, but it was success on everyone else's terms. Yeah. Now it's success on my terms, right? So like I do all the things, but then I get to live the life that I want to live in the way that I want to live it. And that's why I say like, at my core, I'm a rule breaker because I'm breaking all the rules.
Yeah. Which I feels so much better though, right? Like living for you and getting that success versus living for other people and getting that success feels way better.
Yeah. And I find, you know, in a newsroom, there's so many people filled with fear. And I think when I started breaking rules starting a podcast, for anyone else, starting a podcast is totally a normal thing. For me to start a podcast, it's breach of contract. And so to just do it was like, everyone was terrified for me. And it turned out fine.
You still have your job.
I still have my job. Okay. I have it protected in my contract. Like everything's fine.
Well, okay. I want to hit 3 points on that. One, the fear, and I want to go back on how you got into television. But fear is like something that we see just having other people on our podcast too. You see our setup, like it's not huge. It's definitely not a news thing. But we even see people get like nervous about being on screen here. So how is that like, and being in front of so many people like that, and how do you get over that? Okay,
so what you just talked on is exactly, I just gave a TED Talk in August of 2023, and it was on this thing where I say the camera shows who you really are. And a lot of people think that when they step in front of a camera, they think hopefully their best self comes out. I completely disagree. Your best self does not come out when you go on camera. The person who comes out is the person you think you have to be when you step in front of that mic. So like, think about that. Yep. So if I contort my voice, or if I shift my body, or if I hold my shoulders in a different place, that means that I'm telling you, I don't think the person who came in the door, I don't think that person belongs here. I think a different person belongs here. And I'm showing you that through my body, and I'm showing you that through my voice. So I look at people, and I've seen it for almost 2 decades, right? Like I have interviewed, you guys, more than 1,100 people. I've asked more than 10,000 questions recorded on camera and in front of mics. Like I watch people and I see what they do when they're afraid. And I also see what they do when they're completely blind to who they really are. I watch it all. And so for me, when I see people who are terrified of the camera, I say, why are you afraid of you?
Yeah.
Why are you afraid of the judgment? Why are you, what in you is so afraid to be seen? And let's talk about that. Like, let's not talk about the BS that you came to talk about. Let's talk about why you're so afraid.
Yeah.
So how did I get over it? I think I was always meant to do this, so this has never been a problem. But it has come, I think, in the last few years, the realization of like, hey, Lauren, you were taught to be this person who fits perfectly into this mold, but that ain't you. Yeah. So like little by little, I think over the years, I've always broken rules, and now I just do what I want.
Yeah. Hey,
I show up how I want to show up.
That's fair.
I mean, that's true. Like, isn't that where you want to end? I mean, that's it. That's right. You can be yourself.
That's right. And so many people are just afraid of that.
They're afraid. I'll tell you just like personal experience with this podcast. You know, you become your worst critic when you're seeing yourself, your voice, the way you look. Oh my gosh, my hair didn't look good that day, or I blah, blah, blah. Like all the things. We tore each other apart. Not each other, but I would tear myself, and she would tear herself, and like, okay, we've got to get through this. Like, who gives a shit?
No one does.
We're just talking. Yeah. We're having a good conversation, and it's about the context or the content that we're giving, not really what.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, when you give yourself, I mean, it's so simple. When you give yourself permission to like show up how you showed up, you give everybody else permission too. That's what I've seen is like when this is the incredible thing. It's like unspoken. We can all pick up on everybody else's energy. So like you can see someone walk into a room and you can be like, oh my God, they're really angry. Like you feel them from across the room.
Absolutely.
So like when you're sitting across from somebody, you feel their nerves, you feel their personal judgment of themselves. But here's what I've seen happen in TV, which is like it's so crazy because it's like this microcosm for real life, which is if I show up and I am super self-conscious, I don't have to say a word. You will feel
it.
how self-conscious I am on the things that I'm saying, the clothes that I'm wearing, the way my hair looks. Like you'll feel it. And so then, you know what that is? It's a silent, unspoken invitation for you to judge me, right? And so then you can pick me apart, you can do all those things. But listen, if I show up and I have that giant FU on my forehead, again, like completely unspoken, you'll feel my FU and you'll be like, go get it, girl. Good for you, right?
I love
Like
that.
it's whatever
so
you
true.
believe and however you show up is what you're bringing to people. And so like,
100%.
let that sound the alarm. Because if you feel like you're getting judgment from people, it's because you're judging yourself and you're inviting their judgment.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm going to therapy today.
I know, and I'm like, that's exactly how we feel. But
So
like,
profound.
it's something
I
you
love
have
it.
to. It takes practice to get through that. And I know you've been on the screen for 20 years, so it's taken practice. But like for us, it's season 2, so it was like, And then you're right, when you have people come in, and we've had a guest get up because she was starting to have a panic attack on it. Oh no! You know, so like just you got lights, camera, action, like it's legit, right? Like so it creates nerves. And again, you're right. You have to be able to be comfortable with what you're saying, or like just. But what's like I don't know.
Well, okay.
You can fumble through it.
So just several weeks ago, I had my mom and my daughter join me for a segment on TV. Okay, and they've never been on TV. My daughter's 8. Okay. And my mom has never been on TV. My daughter's like a fun little performer, but she's also never been on TV. And so I could see it that they were starting to get nervous, which I totally understand. It's different to sit in front of a camera with lights in your face and a mic in your face. It's different. And so here's what I told them, and here's what I will tell you, and you feel free to use it and take it. But here's the thing. When you are in a one-to-one conversation that's recorded, if you're on TV, if you're on camera in any way, but you're like, oh, the pressure is high, the pressure's on, what you have to do, and I'm serious about have to do, is put on blinders. Completely compartmentalize the fact that there are lights in your face, completely compartmentalize the mic and the camera and everything. You have to block it all out, and you have to stay fully in the moment. Don't think about what you're going to say. Let it flow.
I agree.
Right? Like you just have to be there, because if I watched my mom do it. Like she stopped herself and she censored herself. And I was like, no, just remember, just be you. Just blurt it out. Yeah, especially in television, like the faster you can let stuff come out, it's like, it can be really powerful that way because you're in the moment.
Yeah, and you're not necessarily worrying about following a script and saying the correct exact thing.
Do not follow scripts.
No. Well, and that, so when I was stalking you and like doing my homework on you for this interview, I was looking, I mean, you've interviewed some incredible, powerful people, a lot, right? Yeah. Being in the CMAs and all the fun stuff you've done. So how does that, I mean, do your nerves get to you at that point? No. Do you get starstruck and you're like, blah, 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 blah? No.
Because what did I say? Blinders.
Yeah, you focus
completely in the moment. Yep. Who am I talking to?
Yeah.
Who am I talking to? Like I'm talking to a person.
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm talking to an artist who has art. So like there are certain things that you ask. Well, I say you. There's certain things that I ask someone when I'm dealing with someone who creates from like. If you're going to create, you don't create from here.
Right. Yeah.
You don't create from the head. You create from neck down, right? You create from heart. You create from soul. You create from like this part of your gut that's like, oh, I feel that, like shot through the heart. You know, that's where creators create from. So if I want to connect with someone here, and I'm saying like from belly button to clavicle. Like if I want to connect with someone in their body, I'm going to ask questions from here, from those places that have emotion.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what awards they've won. If an artist is in front of me and I want to talk about their art, I'm going to ask soul-led questions about their soul-led escapades, you know?
Then you're going to get the best responses and the most true to them responses too.
Yeah.
Because they're passionate about it and want to share.
Right, absolutely. And those are the kind of interviews I like to do anyway, because I am someone who feels people.
Yeah.
And so I like to feel, what came from them, right? Like what position were they in when they created that thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and you had talked a lot whenever I saw you give your whatever you want to call that, presentation, speech, seminar, all the things. And you talked about your experience and being in the hospital and when that really like tied you to all the chakras and like when you started getting really big into that.
Yeah.
So is that something that you live your life by now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So some backstory. So I've worked really damn hard for a long time. And I did not know how much stress can manifest then as disease in the body.
Yeah.
But I am the poster child for it. I learned it the hard way, which is being sidelined multiple times because of my health, because I ran too hard, or it's not even just running too hard. It's allowing my mind to run the show, right? So like if you lay in bed at night and you can't stop thinking about the day, then your mind is running the show, okay? So if you can lay down and immediately fall asleep, well then great. You've successfully turned your mind off.
Who are those people?
Right? Right?
And how do you do that?
How do I get in touch with you?
Right. So let me tell you.
So we all call each other at 2:30 in the morning when
Yeah.
we're laying there going,
Yes.
oh my God, did I do this? Should I
Yeah.
do that? Why did I do this? Where am I going?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
so
God.
I learned the hard way, and what ended up happening for me is that turned into hospitalization. Why, Lauren? Why did it turn into hospitalization? Because my body ceased to function optimally because I stopped doing things that would allow it to rest. I never would rest, right? Like I'd work all the time. Yeah. So I work full time. I have 3 children. Present, they're 8, 5, and 3. And in addition to working full time and then having these kids, I also, built this podcast business, right? So like there's 15 hours a week and stress and like the stress of all of that is, and then I'm a wife and then I'm a friend. It's like, how do you, and I know you girls get it. Like,
it's a lot.
How do you do the things that are important to you? And I'm just someone who doesn't believe you have to choose. I know plenty of people will be like, oh, no, you have to choose. And I'm like, no, you don't.
You can do it all.
Have your cake and eat it too. And like, my husband makes fun of me all the time because he's like, you think you can have your cake and eat it too. I'm like, you're damn right I think that. You're damn right.
You're
Because
like,
I
can.
Because I can and I will. Yeah. But what I realized is the manner in which I did things, made me really sick. So like, how did I get sick? I ended up needing an emergency appendectomy. Funny story. Funny because it's in the past, but it's August 2022. It's very painful in the moment. August 2022. Y'all, I was supposed to wave the green flag for the IndyCar race downtown.
Oh my goodness.
And
That's
at
awesome.
2 a.m, I wake up. It's a Sunday morning, August 7th, 2022. It's a Sunday morning, and I just had this deep, deep knowing that something was wrong. I drove myself to the emergency room, and I told the doctor, hey, just like do scans or whatever. I have to get downtown to wave the green flag for this IndyCar race. And he was like, he looked at me like, you must be crazy, girl. He's like, but we'll run the tests, okay? And he comes back in an hour later, and he's like, you're not going anywhere. Like, you need surgery now. And I was like, wait, now? Like, I just thought.
Like, I need to schedule this.
I know. Well, that was my thought. My thought was like, if something's really wrong, I'll come back in tomorrow and we'll get something done. But it never crossed my mind that something would require emergent surgery. So that should have been just like over and out. But the thing that taught me the lesson in all of this was that I ended up with super rare surgical complications, so rare that my care team had never even seen them themselves. They've heard of it happening, but never seen it. I developed abscesses the size of oranges in my abdominal wall. So like in my muscles, you guys, it was awful.
Goodness.
So like in addition to having 3 children and having like that trauma around your stomach, now then I'm also having more abdominal surgery. And I laid in a hospital bed for, almost like off and on for a month. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. Wow. And I stared, like I'll never forget, just staring at the ceiling tiles and realizing this was the moment of change for me, because what was taken from me was the one thing I valued, which was my productivity. Mm-hmm. I valued my productivity more than anything. Mm-hmm. And when it was taken from me, that's when I realized I had an unhealthy relationship with my ability to produce things. Yeah. And so it forced me into surrender. And that was a year and a half ago.
Wow.
And I live from that place now. And I can still get everything done. I just get it done without the monkey mind going crazy.
That's insane that you didn't even like physically feel like sick, or did you? You just knew like, I think something's wrong with me. I think something's wrong, and then you went and there was.
You know what it felt like? Actually, the abscesses hurt worse than childbirth. I'll just tell you that for sure. But like the original, you know when you run and you get a side stitch and you're like, ouch, I got a side. That's what it actually felt like. And I was like, something's weird. And it was there for 36 hours and I had a high fever and then it was just my intuition. Like, something's real wrong, girl. Yeah. Something's real wrong. Yeah. And it was sudden and
Goodness. Well, at least you went before you started waving the flag. You didn't.
Oh my God.
It would have burst up there. Like, no joke. It would have burst.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah. At least you're in the place that you're at now. It's awful that you had to go through that to be able to get to where you are. But.
Yeah, but that's the beginning of that is when I started really speaking. After that, I was like, people need to know. And you asked me specifically about like chakras. Well, it's like, if you don't know what chakras are, they're just basically this ancient concept of energy centers within the body. And so when we start thinking of our body as more than just a head and then a machine, because I think a lot of us think that like you live in your head and that's it, and then neck down, that's the machine. Okay, I got to feed this thing. I got to exercise this thing. Oh yeah, this body needs sleep. When we stop thinking of ourselves in such a disconnected way, we start to realize we are more than our thoughts. Like the only thing that's taken you around is your body, right? And so if you can I find if you can focus your energy differently, you can sleep at night. Yeah. You can relax. You can do those things because you're not thinking of yourself as a machine.
Gotcha.
It's funny. I just kind of go back a little bit. We did a whole episode on burnout, which listening to how you're speaking about all that, I think it's super important that people are they're familiar with their body and they feel those signs that are coming on, because I think burnout is real. And like, and we're so, like you said, a machine, and I'm a mom of 3 like you. I have a husband and my jobs and all the things. And it's like you just live in this almost like hamster wheel of every day you wake up, repeat, rinse, repeat, do it again, right?
The rat race.
The rat race of it. And we're so driven by that. And I mean, I know I am personally. I can't imagine being stripped of productivity because I do live by that.
Right.
But like listening to your podcast and stuff and finding purpose, that isn't my purpose. I have bigger purposes, but like putting your finger on it, taking a pause and realizing that there is something bigger than this. Yeah. Bigger than me coming to the office every day. Like that's like life changing. And unfortunately for you, it took you to the hospital to figure it out.
But I think it's a gift. I will never forget this. My mom said to me, this was after everything was over, and she had to come up and stay. Since that time, she's moved now to Nashville. So oh great. So if there's ever like a problem, this won't be an issue.
She's already here.
Yeah, she's already here now. But I remember her saying to me, she said, Lauren, I believe if you would have called out to God, he would have saved you. And I said, Mom, you're missing it. The hospital was the deliverance. The hospital, think about that.
Yeah.
The forced stoppage was the deliverance from how I was living. I was living in the rat race. I was living in this commitment to productivity. I was living in this place, truly a place of revenge of I will show you, everyone else, I will show you how good I am. Yep. I will show you how capable I am. I will show you how creative I am. That is not a good place to create from. Creativity, purpose, love, that's all supposed to come from peace. That's supposed to come from joy. But I was creating from revenge, from pride, from desire. I was creating from these places that do not end up well. And it required me to experience where it ends to understand that I needed to create from somewhere different, right? I needed to start from somewhere different. And I will never, yes, it was a painful month. It was a painful time. I had to I could barely walk. I definitely could hardly sit up. It was a hard time, but look where I am now. Look what it taught me. And now I just feel so galvanized to especially help other women, because I know that my awareness of my body saved me. And it happened to me years ago before as well. In 2018, I nearly died after the birth of my second child. Something was wrong with my heart. I could feel it. Nothing came up in the tests. I had to beg the doctors to keep me in the hospital. Wow, yeah. And when they finally listened to me, because I'll never forget, the doctor said, she's like, Lauren, I can't find anything. What do you want me to do? And it was a very kind and loving question. But when does a doctor say, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And I mustered every bit of courage I had in that moment in 2018. And I said to her, look, I'm not a doctor, right? Like, I'm not a doctor. But I know that it feels like I'm dying. I feel like I'm dying. I don't know what test needs to be called, what you can do, but you cannot send me home. So they called one more test, and the test showed my lungs were full of fluid. I was drowning in my body. My heart was enlarged.
How did they not see that?
Well, because it was, I don't know, it was the regular test.
Wow.
So I had something rare. And this is what I mean, you guys. Like, the body speaks.
Yep.
The body speaks, and the language it speaks is in disease. When you cut off your body from, like, hey, come to the party body, like when you cut it off, it speaks to you in disease. So it speaks to you in headaches. It speaks to you in weight gain. It speaks to you in insomnia. It speaks to you in hormonal issues. That's how it speaks. Yeah. And so we think we have to fix, like, symptoms. No, babe. You got to fix the cause.
Lifestyle.
You got to fix your life, right? The root of the
Yes.
problem. So that's why I'm going to circle all the way back. That's why I say, like, who am I? Who am I? I am not an anchor. I'm not a mom. I am not those things. Those are things I do with joy and with pleasure and with honor. But that's not who I am, right? Like, I'm someone who's learned a crap load of lessons the hard way, right? That's who I am. And I'm fine with that. So I'm here to dole out the lessons to anyone who'll listen.
So let me ask you something.
Okay.
So since you've had this, just like it's truly life-changing, this epiphany that you've had about yourself and your life, and now you're trying to share that with other people, how do you think that your life has changed in, like, the way that you feel about yourself and the successes that you've had since that has happened? Like, have you actually seen, like, a true change in, like, just everyday life, or how has that kind of come across for you?
Oh, I can feel it all through my heart. My heart is full. Like, I see it in my reactions. That's actually a good place to start. I see it in my reactions to things that would in the past really upset me or really anger me. I'll giggle at and think, I feel nothing.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's such a good place to be.
Yeah, it's such a good place to be. I also feel the difference I see is how I feel. Truly, like, I feel worthy. I feel like I belong everywhere. I feel like nothing can stop me. The only thing that can stop me is me. Not because I force my way into situations or force things to happen. It's because I allow them to happen, right? Like, what I say goes. What I want comes to me. Yeah. And it's a completely different place to live. And, you know, it's sweet, like, seeing my children. I feel like kids are always mirrors, right? So they will always reflect back to you what you give. Sure. And so to see just this boundless love from my little kids is like, oh my God, love and acceptance. And, it's just really beautiful. And then, I mean, I keep getting things at work, which is kind of crazy. You know, the same place that caused so much pain. And I just mean, and when I say place, I mean my whole career, right? Like, I've worked in multiple markets, multiple stations, and it's been painful. It's a painful industry. If you are on camera, everything about it is painful because you're expected to shave off parts of yourself to fit a mold. And all of us, we say yes to it until such time as we go, oh, hell no.
Right. And you expect pushback, maybe, especially in your industry.
Yeah, and I expected pushback when I started saying hell no and got none.
Ooh.
That's where I see that's what I was saying to you girls earlier about, like, the energy with which you come in, right? Like, I've got this giant FU on my forehead. Yeah. No one messes with me, right?
Well, they also find value in you, honey. Like, you've also placed yourself somewhere very special, and they see it in you.
Right?
They may have seen it this whole time, where we're pushing you to your limits.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So here's the mirror back to you guys, right? So when you show up, and you're showing up with knowing your value, knowing your worth, knowing, like, hey, this is who I am, and this is how it's gonna be. Like it or not, I ain't changing.
I ain't changing. So you either take me or leave me.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And they probably the whole time wanted to keep you. They're like, let's let her figure it out. And then you're like, no, really, F you. I'm here.
Absolutely.
Take it. And they're like, bring it. Okay,
and since you found out your own self-worth and giving yourself that higher like power,
Yeah.
then other people treat you that way.
Totally.
Just
Probably see it.
unconsciously,
Totally.
they treat you that way.
They do.
And that's amazing. So I do want to circle back just to get like a little bit more history on you. So how did you get into the space that you're in? Was it something like growing up, you're like, okay, I want to be on the news. Like, this is what I want to do.
Listen to her voice. She has like
I
the
know
perfect,
it. She does.
perfect voice
You do
for
have the perfect
radio,
voice,
TV, everything.
Oh my God, you guys are sweet. Okay, so I went to school for musical theater. So I sing, dance, and do all
That's
of that
where
stuff,
that
right?
comes
So like
from.
when I was younger, I say younger, even when I was 21, I was teaching and competing in ballroom. Like I've just done all sorts of stuff, right?
Amazing.
So like when I was in college though, I was a musical theater major at Florida State, and I kept noticing in all of my acting classes, the thing that kept coming back, I kept thinking like, these people don't like being who they are. They want to play the roles of other people. I'm perfectly fine being who I am, but I don't need anyone to tell me that. Like, I'm okay with me.
Yeah.
I don't need to play some other role. And so I was like, this might not be for me. That was how I realized it wasn't for me.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, I'll go be a communication major. That's what I'll do. TV will just kind of work out for me in that way. And literally I fell into television. And I've been in it ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how the best things happen, though. I mean, you just fall
Yeah.
into
It's
it,
like when
don't
God's
plan
like,
it.
okay, let me help you, girl. Like, here you go.
I know.
Well,
I
and to
love that.
find it that young and then to still be doing it, I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's funny. Like, it's funny about television. I've tried to leave so many times since I was 21. Actually, I remember being 3 months into my job and being like, "This ain't for me. Like, what am I doing here?" And then
Look
here I
at you
am, almost 20 years later, still doing it. I'm like, "How am I still here? Like, what's going on?" Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it's
That's
happened.
great, though.
Well, you did the same thing. You found what you wanted to do early and stuck with it.
I guess so. Yeah, right out of college.
Yeah.
I fell into real estate, and here I am 20 years later. So.
Best things happen that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
They
think
really
it's
do.
wonderful. Let's talk about Ampistigator.
Yeah.
So I love it because I have to say it like in two parts. It
Yeah.
took me a minute when I first saw your podcast to say, okay, Ampistigator, it's an
Yeah.
interesting title.
Yeah.
But I like what it amplifying. Well, I'll let you
Yeah,
explain.
yeah. So when I started it, so it's 2 words, right? Amplify and instigator. So amplify is to bring intensity to something. Instigator is somebody who creates change, I say. An instigator like gets you to do something. Well, oftentimes it's treated as a negative. I look at it as a positive.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you are a rule breaker.
I am a rule
Yeah.
breaker, right? So, and I am an intense person. So, initially, I would say an ampistigator is someone who brings about intense change, or an intense person bringing change. The longer I've gone on, and actually fun, #rebrand.
Oh.
I'm for my next season that I'm going to launch pretty soon here. I'm changing it to amplifying the voices of instigators. My most favorite people are the people who are sacred rebels, rule breakers, industry disruptors. I love people like that are like, you know what, this don't work for me. I'm going to do something different. Those are my favorite kind of people. And those are the stories I like to tell. So those are the people I like to interview. And so that's what it's really that's like the focus I'm moving into with Ampistigator. And then also, I have been finding that people, just like what we were talking about earlier, like people really struggle with they don't have the permission to be themselves. And I want Ampistigator to be something that helps people realize, no, honey, exactly who you are and how you are is who needs to show up. That's who I want to sit in this chair, not somebody coming up like talking about corporate synergies. That's not what I want.
No.
I want the real you. And you can feel like you have to be someone else in every other venue. When you sit down in my chair, you are you. No one else is welcome. Strip it down, give me the real you. And those are the people I like to talk to. But I also want to give people permission to be that, to be themselves. And so that's going to be the new mission of Ampistigator moving
that.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah,
that.
because the true intention of the podcast is for them to talk about their purpose or help them find their purpose. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Purpose. Because are you guys familiar with the term expander? What an expander is? So an expander, well, not the kind like braces, not an expander like that way. Okay. But expanders in neuroscience are considered the type of people that when you see someone doing something and you say, I can do that. I'm seeing someone else do it. Now I know it's possible. So then that person became an expander for you.
Okay.
So like if you see somebody selling even more homes than you, or you see them having more rentals than you or whatever, suddenly they might make you feel jealous for a moment, but in that moment, they have now become an expander because they've shown you what's possible. So from the get-go, I've always wanted to tell stories of people who are expanders because in television, we have tight time limits, right? You have a minute and a half. That's it. That's all you get.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have interviews that were completely uncut, that I didn't have to edit, that I didn't have to censor, that I didn't, like, tell me your truth, right? Tell me the whole story, not the 60-second version that I'm going to cut up and splice up to how I want, right? Yeah. And so that's what the podcast has always been. It's like showing expanders, right? Showing people what they can be. So if someone has found purpose and the way they talk about their personal journey, that can be an expander for a listener, right? So like everyone's journey to purpose is different, right? Like how many lessons do you learn along the way? How many pitfalls and bumps and bruises and scuffs and scars, like how all the things that you get along the way to purpose. That's what I want to highlight, because people love frameworks, right? Like people love here's the top 5 things, and those super clickbait, right? But it is your life, and you cannot framework your life. No. It doesn't work that way. So that's what I've always wanted to do, is highlight those people that help you get closer to your own purpose, your own search for meaning, your own search for fulfillment, just right there in your earbuds, you know?
I mean, it's just, no, go for it. I'm just thinking.
I was going to say, so do you ever have people that come on your podcast that don't know their purpose? Or all the people that you have on are intentionally people that have a purpose and want to share how they got there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's funny, I had a few months ago, I had a company, like a marketing company come to me, and they're like, we want to start booking guests for you and that sort of thing. Like, do you need help with that? And I was like, no. I don't. No. And they're like, well, how do you get your guests? And I'm like, they find me. And that's the honest to God truth. Like from the get-go, my podcast has been it was a calling. It's been a soul-led operation. And so it's like, whoever needs to be on my podcast will just show up into my path. And that's literally how it's happened. And I told the lady, and I remember like we were on a video call, and I was watching her on the other side, because like I watch people, this is what I do. And I was watching her in her like visible physical response to things I was saying, and she had no idea what to ask me. And I was like, that's funny. I interview people for a living, but I'll let you be nervous and I'll let you be uncomfortable in this moment. But she had no idea what to say to me, because it's like, well, how do you framework something that's completely spiritual? How do you can't is the point. You can't. I will know the right people when I meet them, right? Like, so like I'll meet someone and go, oh, you need to be with me. And we need to have a deep, like soul level conversation about who are you, right? And like pitfalls. Because I think people relate to turning points, right? They're things in our own personal stories that we can share with people, that people grab onto.
For sure.
Because then you remember, oh yeah, well, I've had a moment like that, like a rock freaking bottom moment, turning point. Like we've had those, right? And those things speak to us. And so when we hear it in other people, we go, oh, yeah, wait a minute. Maybe I'm looking at my life wrong. Maybe I've been living my purpose all along. Maybe it's always been here and I've just missed it.
Yeah. That's exactly, you just nailed it right there.
Yep.
I think people just they're not even aware of it, because they don't have these deep conversations where you actually sit back and self-reflect on what was that pivotal moment. And I probably could sit here and think about a million that I've never even like, well, shit, that did happen.
Yeah.
That did change the path that I was on at that time, or whatever the case might be. So I think it's important that people just talk.
For sure.
And
Well,
talk to people.
self-awareness is hard.
It's huge. What's totally hard. We did a whole episode on that. Well, I think we've done multiple episodes on that. We're both psychology degrees. Like that's both of our majors. So we get kind of in the head stuff, but also the heart stuff. But like we'll talk about that, like self-care, self-awareness, like all the things that really define who we are when we need to think about it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course. Do you want to interview us now?
At what points I'm sure there's been multiple points. When does it get really, really hard for you? Like all the things that you're doing, when is it really hard?
Do you have an hour? For me, I think I have a lot of hats. Like I've got, I've opened the brokerage. I have 7 agents, and I've got my 3 kids, and my husband travels to California for work still. So I'm doing a lot. Plus we have investment properties and all the things. So I have a million hats. I think it gets hard when I sit down and think about how much shit I got on my plate. So for me, freak
your own self out.
Freak myself out.
Yeah.
I mean, I have definitely teetered with the burnout thing. You know, I have anxiety for certain things. There's certain things, but when bringing Maggie, when she fell into my lap, that was a pivotal moment, to tell you the truth. And that came almost 2 years ago now. Randomly, she was my bartender in Knoxville.
So random.
And we were on the same path. She was graduating college. She was getting her real estate license and moving to Franklin. And I'm like, oh, what? I've always been on my own, never had a bunch of agents.
Never.
And then here, 2 years later,
And
she
you
is
can trust her.
I can breathe. I can breathe.
Yeah.
So
Aww.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
We have a special talk about meant to be path.
Yes.
Like crossing.
Well, you guide
So,
her
yeah.
in so many ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For sure.
She's let me breathe and not be so overwhelmed. If that answers your question in a very roundabout way.
I still feel like you need more help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
she
I need
does.
help.
People.
Yeah.
More
and
people.
I do. And and that's all part of the letting go of control, which I'm an Aries type A. Shit doesn't get done if I don't do it. Kind of chick. She'll never do it as good as me. And I've learned that's bullshit.
Yeah.
She
Sometimes
does
done
do
is
it.
better than perfect, right?
Yes. Yes. And like, I want to be there and like present with the kids and in these conversations and stuff. And when you have your mind going a million different directions, it's hard to like
Really sit down and
quit.
When's it hard for you?
You know, I don't know. I think I'm still trying to figure that out. Like the whole purpose thing and figuring out like pain points. I'm 23.
Yeah, you're so young.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. I really don't know.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to tell you that's totally fine. Like I don't think I had any self-awareness until I think there was a point at 28. I remember having like a breakdown around like none of this makes sense. What am I doing? I'm not happy, but then I'd continue to do all the things that didn't make me happy. At 32, I had another one at 32. Like you got time. You got time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I am so young. I think I'm still just trying to just navigate like everything that is going on right now and trying to figure that out and like what we have going on. And I don't know. That's such a hard question, and the whole purpose thing is really hard too. I don't know what my purpose is.
No. There's no pressure. Don't even
so
worry.
lame,
Just
but
no. Do things that you enjoy. Period. Do things that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Things
I
that
think
things
this
that make you
is going
happy.
to help me find that. You know, like I think I don't want to say real estate is my passion. Like I don't think like oh my God, I want to own like 1 million properties or like whatever. I don't think that's my passion, but I think like doing this and being with Kara like is going to help me find that.
I love that.
And I think we've we've opened up multiple doors that I think are going to help me, end up where I want to be. And I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without her. Like we go back, she said something about people you're supposed to be with. I feel like I knew her in a different life. It's so weird. So meeting her was definitely like a pivotal moment for me. But I'm still trying to figure it all out.
I love that. I wonder, Kara, I found that like with having children were a huge gift for me because where I really have always struggled, like I actually don't think this is true, okay? I don't think I'd still be alive right now if I didn't have kids. And here's why. The intensity with which I live my life, the like full all-out sprint, like everything was like pedal to the metal, everything was in the red. Like when I had kids force you into being present. Like they force you into the present moment. And so I've said over and over and over again, like, wow, me having children, I realize this isn't the case for everyone, but with my personality, with my intensity, having children was the greatest thing that makes me slow down because it forces me to be like right there with them because they're not in their heads. Like that's not how kids live. Like they live in the present moment. They have their needs and they speak their needs and they just want love and they want to give love. And it's like, what the hell have I been doing all day? I could have just been sitting here like hugging my 5-year-old. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it forces me to stop. I wonder if that's been that way for you with kids.
Yeah, I think it has. It's also been, it's busy. My kids are a little bit older than yours, so I'm experiencing freshmen in college this year.
Oh,
and like
geez.
the things that all come to that. Senior in high school and then an 8th grader. But they keep me busy. They're 3 boys, and they're just run circles around me all the time. So I'm trying to like balance that. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes you slow down because you are looking at an innocent face that only sees you as their mom. They're not seeing, I mean, they see my hats and they know that I come to the office and they know that, but they actually are looking at me as like my true self. So when it comes back to what you were saying, they're the only ones that don't have blinders on. If you
Oh my
really
God,
wanna
kids
get dark
see you,
and
right?
Oh my gosh, and they are not afraid to tell you either.
No.
No, but it is like they truly see you. So that, I love that you just brought that up, because it is kind of back to what you were saying earlier. When you strip down all the hats and all the outfits and all the facades you got to put on for whatever behavior you got to be that day, your kids don't give a shit.
They don't.
They just want you to be there.
They just want you
cook
there.
a warm meal and sit. And I mean, I make it very, like, 6 o'clock is dinner. My kids are at the dinner table. Like, we can just bullshit about the day. And it's so, like, she'll call and I'm like, I ignore.
Yeah.
And she knows
Yeah.
it. She's like,
Yeah.
okay, Kara's cooking dinner. She's having time with her boys and her husband. And, like, that's our.
It's like sacred time.
It is. It's regrouping
definitely
time. We
is.
can all, like, just be there.
Yeah.
Right.
I will say something that I love about Kara. I'll give you a shout out really quick. Like, Kara has such a good relationship with her kids. I did not grow up with a super close relationship to my parents, and to see, like, her be so, like, loving and just there with her kids is really admiring. Like,
Aw, thank you.
and her kids show the love to her right back. Like, you
Fun. I love
you have
my boys.
no doubt if you sit at a table or see them at a restaurant that, like, okay, they love each other, like they are a close family. And I love that. I think that's
Gives me
something
chills,
to strive
you
I
for.
know,
guys.
this
Like, that
conversation's
gives me
like
chills.
totally changed. I
But
love
it's
it.
true.
But it's good. It's important to me. That's like,
Well,
I mean,
think about what kind of impact that's going to have on them.
Yeah.
You know, when they go
100%.
out and they decide to make their own lives, and, like, you know, I have one child who's like, I'm never getting married, I'm never having kids, and I'm like, hey, look, you do you, right? Like, you do
Yeah.
you. But even still, I think, you know, they will look at women and compare them against you, and you are a hard act to follow, girl.
But that's good.
I know.
But I think it's
good.
fantastic.
Yeah, well, same for you. I don't know.
Yes,
I don't know your kids. I
absolutely.
don't know you well enough to speak about your kids, but I
sweet
just
kids.
know that you and them are the same way.
oh, for
Oh yeah,
sure.
they're sweet.
Strong
They're
women
sweet
create
kids.
strong kids.
Well, yeah. No, they do. I think so.
And they're still young, but they're seeing it. They see that mom goes to work and she busts her butt and she comes home and be present. I mean, those are things that you can't change.
Right.
100%. I do have a question for you.
Okay, let's hear
Before
it.
we kind of wrap it all back to work-life balance, you have found your purpose, and you've talked to a lot of people that have found their purpose. Do you have any, like, just quick advice for people that, like me, that don't know their purpose and want to find it, or, like, want to get there? I know, like, breaking point, hit rock bottom.
Yeah,
could
yeah.
Be one,
I have a few.
Okay.
One thing I would say to look at is look at the thing you're running from.
Okay.
Think about that. Like, what is the thing that you're running from? And I'm going to use television for me as an example. Like I told you, I got into TV. I started working in a newsroom when I was 21 years old. And within a few months, I was like, this ain't it. Like, this ain't it. And then here I am, I'm almost 39, and I'm still doing it. And for years, it's been a painful thing. It's been painful. Now, like television, like, you only see what's through your screen, right? So you see the makeup and the clothes and all that stuff, but you don't see all the things that had to happen behind the camera, right? All the pain. And so for 2 decades, I've been in it, but been running from it. So, but look at me. Like, I needed this experience. How would I have been able to start this podcast that brings so much purpose if I hadn't had production experience? You know what I'm saying? Like, look at the things you're running from. So that's just one thing. So yes, rock bottom. Where was there a point that became a turning point for you? And you might not have hit it yet. And you haven't actually hit it yet. I know you haven't. Because you would know. You would know if you had.
Yeah.
So look for any rock bottoms. Look for something that you're running from, because it might not be visible to you yet, but there's probably purpose there in the thing that you keep trying to get away from. There's probably something I'm not going to say conquer, but there's something you're supposed to do within it. I'd also say the simplest thing, you hear a lot of people say this, is like, what do you love to do? And I think we put too much pressure on ourselves. Guess what I love to do? I love to sing. I love to dance. I love to kiss my kids. I love to wear pretty clothes. I love to, like, all the things I love to do. When we connect more deeply with the things we really love, the things that bring us joy and peace and fulfillment, when that becomes like we talk about this hamster wheel, and hamster wheel is a negative thing, but if that's all the thoughts we think is positivity, joy, and love, and like when we surround ourselves with that warm blanket, you start to see things more clearly. When something makes you, I'll say it this way, if something pulls you out of alignment, you feel it immediately.
Sure.
Because instead of surrounding yourself with things that you hate doing, you start surrounding yourself with things you love to do. And so you feel the separation when you hit something that you don't like. And oftentimes your natural gifting is something that you really already enjoy. And I will tell you this, you were talking about burnout earlier.
Yeah.
Because I am creating a theory around this thing about, like, I thought for a long time, like, how can anyone be good at something we don't enjoy? Mm-hmm. Like, how many people, like, I've met attorneys who are like, God, I hate being an attorney. Right. But you're so good at it. Like, what happened? Or like, Lauren, you're a damn good news anchor. Like, how can you not enjoy that, right? Like, I've been running from it for so long, but yet here I am and like doing great. Like, what the hell? None of it makes sense. So how are we good at things that we don't enjoy? That's the stuff that I would tell you to really look at. When you're really good at something but you don't like it, I believe that's the root of burnout, because what's happening is you have natural gifting there. That's why you're good at it. You have natural gifting, but then the reason you don't enjoy it is because you're using that gift in a way it was never intended to be used. And so you have to really reconfigure how you execute on this thing that you have natural gifting in. Does that make sense?
100%.
So like, I feel like you can find purpose
For
there
sure.
as well. So there's like a lot of ways to like, think of it like a diamond. If you hold up the diamond and you start rotating the diamond and you're looking at the different facets, your life is that way. So just hold it up and just start looking at it differently from different angles.
That takes a long look in the mirror.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah.
That is that's profound. And I'm just going to give you just a quick example before I don't want.
Please,
too much
please, I
about
love
this
it.
Stuff. But so exactly what you said is exactly what's changed in my life personally, because I am a really good real estate agent. I can close the hell out of a deal. I know that, but I'm a really good mentor, and I'm a really good like listener when it comes to. I know the path of it, but I've flipped my script, so I'm not the active. I am still, but I am more of the broker here now. That I am changed. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not having to show the properties. I'm better at
the mentoring part,
I'm
the
really
guiding
good at that
part.
So that's where it's like you taking your passion and your gift and all the stuff that you were supposed to be doing, and I've done it for so long, but I've been able to flip it to the psychology side that I've been more passionate about with her and with the other agents. And I think that's been a pivotal point in changing, like you're saying, looking at it and turning it. Like, I think that's really where I'm supposed to be too.
Yeah,
So
I love that.
I think that's to come for you. I know.
I was about to say.
Yeah, you've got so much in your future. You're 20 years younger than me, sister.
Yeah.
You don't need to have hardships yet.
Yeah, and then honestly,
enjoy the moment.
and then like having an older friend is so helpful. Like someone you just will listen to, because she can help you avoid pitfalls.
100%.
Do I tell you
already
that?
has. Yeah.
Yeah, like
you're all going to fall off the bike, but I can help you not fall as hard.
Yeah.
Already. And we've only
That's
been together
truth.
2 years, and we've seen like multiple examples of that.
Yeah, I love that. Don't put pressure on yourself, please. Don't put pressure on yourself. Don't do that.
It's in the
Don't do
blood
that
for her.
I know. She's like, but I want it to be right. I got to be great.
But like same thing that she was saying, like being a mentor, like I think that's to come for me and be able to help other people and teach, because that's a big thing for me. Like half of my degree is education too. So I think that is something that I will fall into later, hopefully kind of under the same umbrella and what we've got going on here too. So, all to come. We'll see. Who knows?
I love
Very
it.
back in a few years and see if she's hit her pitfall.
I know. Well, I want to say we're about to tie it back to that, but I want to say thank you. Oh my gosh, I feel like I've just gotten so much just personal fulfillment from this conversation and just so much to think about.
Oh, good.
And I
Absolutely.
really appreciate you for just like pulling some stuff out of me that needed to be pulled out.
Yes, girl. I always say, there's a couple things I say. That conversations heal people. When we speak, especially when we speak about trials, our own trials, like getting that stuff up and out of you is so freaking important, because otherwise it just lives in your body, and you don't want that. Get it out.
Get it out.
And then also, I think the best thing that I can do, part of my gifts, right, is to drive the people's awareness of themselves deeper and deeper and deeper, because that is self-awareness, right? Like it is helpful to have a mirror, someone who can be like, hey, look, girl, look at you right now. But you also need someone who's maybe even a little bit beyond, right? Like a little bit beyond you or a lot beyond you, and then they can help drive your awareness deeper, and that's necessary.
Absolutely.
Well, and I got that from you whenever I saw you speak that day. Unfortunately, Kara wasn't able to come that day, but I wish she could have, because like even just that conversation, we did not even really have like a personal conversation there, but you could see that and feel that from you, even just being on a stage. And then you coming in here today, like you have a pretty big following on social media. You have all of these accolades and awards and have done so many things, and you're very impressive. And I just feel like even having a conversation with you, you don't feel that way. I don't know if that comes off wrong,
100%.
but
She's warm and fuzzy, and you just want to like give her a hug.
Yes.
Like I did when you walked in.
You're the type of
you
person.
have a good, yes, your aura is good.
Yes, you're the type of person that feels like you can be 100% yourself around, and I love that about you.
Yeah. No, I give 1,000%. I give people permission because I was not given permission, you guys. Like that is my origin story. It was never permission to be me. But you know, it's funny because like deep down, I always knew, no. Place of power is when you are you.
Right.
But yet you got to, we think we have to follow all these rules and you do, right? Like there's some things here, Lauren, here's what you're going to do to avoid litigation. Oh, okay, great. I'll follow that rule, right?
Yeah,
like
we don't want that.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like there are certain rules we have to follow, but I believe like wholeheartedly, once you know all the rules, great, know all the rules so you can start breaking them. Like, you know, because you have to know that's where you find authenticity. That's where you find your essence is like, well, that rule I'm kind of okay with, but that one I'm not.
Yeah.
And that one, we'll keep that one going. I'll let them think I'm following that rule and then I'll break this other one, right? Like that's just life. That's just life. And that's what makes it fun and exciting.
Oh, wow, I love that.
I love that you found all that, and it's working. And I'm sure you're going to teach all these people that watch this that it works.
Absolutely.
And you can be you.
Yeah.
Everybody's so afraid. And I think that's the culture,
And they're
too.
copying each other. Like, are you seeing? Like, it just drives me nuts. Like,
Oh
I've
my
been
gosh.
seeing this level of copying. It hit me last week in a new way. I was saying to my husband, I was like, there is nothing but scarcity in some of these industries where only all that people do is they want to copy each other, and that is not like, right.
know.
Like
We see
I'm
it.
sure you feel it, and
Yes.
that's how you know you're successful.
Yep.
That's how you know you're making an impact when people start copying the crap out of what you
Yeah.
do, and then it's
love
like, come
that.
on, you know what I say? I'm like, look, I know how to go to the well. I'm full of ideas. Like I'll come back and I'll pull that bucket out with more ideas.
Yeah.
You can copy those too,
Right.
Because if you don't know how to get it yourself. Right? Like if you don't know how to get it yourself, you are doomed to just copy people. That's why you have to go in, right? Like you got to go in and find it.
Yeah.
I love that.
I
We're
mean-
definitely having a little bit of that going right now, so that definitely
But
hits
also,
home.
I
But
try to look at it, you know what? It's flattering. They see something in what we've got, what we're creating.
works.
I try to be positive about it, but then I'm like, be original.
But exactly. But
Do your own thing.
I love how you put it though. It's like you're the one getting those ideas, and you can come back up with a bucket full of more ideas and like whatever, go copy those too because I did it first, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Love that. But to bring it back to
talk
work-life
forever.
balance, you obviously have got it figured out.
I don't know
because-
about that.
I think you do. But how would you, in your own life, how do you find that work-life balance, and how would you advise other people to have that too?
I think you have to figure out what's a non-negotiable. Like for me, and it sounds super cliche, but I just feel it with every cell in my body. Time with my kids, and my kids feeling love from me and acceptance from me is a non-negotiable. And they speak in the language of time. And I'm gone a lot, during the week. So you know what I do when there are, like for you, for example, Carrie, you were saying like 6 o'clock, it's dinner time. Do not disturb. Like no one is disturbing
Phones
me
are
right
off.
now.
Yep.
Phones
Yeah.
are off.
D&D.
Put your phone in a completely different area. Like no one's getting me.
Yeah.
So like my kids feel those boundaries, and that's important to me, that they know that mom is ungettable by anyone else but them. Right. So I think, how do you have balance? I think it's figure out what is a non-negotiable for you. And it doesn't have to be kids. Like it could be anything. It could be time with a friend. It could be time alone in nature on a trail. It could be whatever. But like when you figure out what is a non-negotiable, and again, I think it often comes from pain. You have to go without those things before you can realize, oh no, this is super important to me. And I don't know if there's ever really balance. I think it's just I think it's integration is what it is. So like my kids are integrated in my life. My work is integrated in my life. My podcast, my marriage, like everything. Sometimes the kids are most important and they get all my time. Sometimes anchoring is most important, gets all my time. There's never a true balance.
Yeah.
It's just doing the best you can, right? Knowing what's a non-negotiable, what's important.
Yeah.
Doing
I
the
love
best
how
you
you
can,
put that.
that's right.
Integrate it for your life. I love how you put that too. Your life, not everybody else's life. Your kids' life or not your life. It's not making you lose any purpose.
And it might look different, right?
Yeah.
Like your life can look different than anyone else's, and it's supposed to. It's yours, and I think that's the fallacy of social media, right? Like everyone thinks that this is how it's supposed to look, or this is how your marriage is supposed to be, or this is the person who's supposed to pick up the kids, and then this is the person who makes the dinner, and then this is. Like what works for you. Figure out what has to happen and what's important, and then just do it.
Yeah. Well, Thank you so much.
We can seriously sit here and talk for
I could
hours,
talk to you all
Lauren.
day.
You are an impressive woman.
Thanks, girls.
I mean, you've got a lot of
appreciate it.
hats too, and you're doing a damn good job at all of them.
Thanks.
So
Thanks.
keep it up, and I strive to be balanced like you.
I know. Hey, and you've challenged me to figure out my
Yeah.
purpose and all the
amazing.
things. So
Oh, thanks,
I love
girls.
it.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right, everybody, don't forget, like, share, subscribe.
All the good things.
stuff.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.